The Order of the Phoenix. The Order of the Phoenix is one of the most secret and courageous alliances in the wizarding world. Long before Voldemort's name was even feared, the Order had already been fighting the darkness from the shadows. Founded and led by Albus Dumbledore during the First Wizarding War, it became a silent army bound by trust and sacrifice. With no ministry support and no public recognition, its members operated in secrecy, protecting Muggleborns, gathering intelligence, and defying a force that terrified even the bravest wizards. Their ranks included Aurors like Mad-Eye Moody, idealists like the Potters, and spies like Severus Snape, people united by belief, not orders. The cost was devastating. Many were killed, betrayed, or tortured into silence. When Voldemort fell, the Order faded into whispers, but when he returned, Dumbledore rebuilt it. Older, quieter, more cautious. Hidden inside number 12 Grimmauld Place, they met under the protection of the Fidelius charm. No uniforms, no banners, only conviction. And when Hogwarts burned and the Ministry collapsed, the Order didn't vanish. It became what it had always been, the last defense against fear. Death Eaters. The Death Eaters are the darkest shadow the wizarding world has ever seen. On the surface, they looked like Voldemort's loyal followers, cloaked wizards spreading fear in his name. But their story runs deeper. Before they became Death Eaters, they were students, Tom Riddle's earliest followers at Hogwarts, calling themselves the Knights of Walpurgis. It was an elegant name hiding something darker. Riddle gathered ambitious purebloods and impressionable minds, flattering them with promises of power and destiny. They met in secret, practiced forbidden spells, and idolized him as a prodigy destined to lead wizard kind. After leaving Hogwarts, the name changed, but the ideology didn't. The Knights evolved into the Death Eaters, a movement built on purity, dominance, and control. Riddle bound them with terror and loyalty, sealing their devotion through the dark mark burned into their skin, both oath and curse. Their reach spread like a disease. They infiltrated the ministry, corrupted trials, and silenced dissent. At first, they seemed like a cult of extremists, but behind the masks was something far more dangerous, an organized empire fueled by fear and blood. Even after Voldemort's fall, they never truly vanished. They hid in plain sight, rebuilding, whispering, waiting for his return. When he rose again, they followed with blind faith. The Death Eaters weren't just monsters of war. They were proof that the darkest magic isn't a spell. It's belief turned into obedience. The Sacred 28. The Sacred 28 wasn't just a list, it was a declaration of superiority. In the 1930s, an anonymous author published the Pure Blood Directory, a book that claimed to name the only true pure blood wizarding families in Britain. To the public, it looked like history. To those on the list, it was validation. Names like Malfoy, Black, and Lestrange stood proudly beside smaller houses like Bulstrode and Yaxley, all united by a single belief that magic diluted by Muggle blood was no magic at all. Though never confirmed, historians point to Cantankerous Knot as its likely author, a man whose pride matched his prejudice. The book fueled decades of elitism, driving a cultural wedge through the wizarding world and paving the way for Voldemort's rise. Its influence was violent but ideological, and that made it even more dangerous. The irony is that the obsession with purity ensured their extinction. Intermarriage, infighting, and dwindling birth lines eroded the very thing they worshipped until the list became meaningless. By the modern age, all that remained was the prejudice itself, proof that arrogance disguised as heritage doesn't preserve power, it poisons it. The Unspeakables. Deep beneath the Ministry of Magic lies one of the most secret institutions in the wizarding world, the Department of Mysteries. On the surface, it looks like another branch of magical bureaucracy, endless corridors, sealed doors, and employees who never speak about their work. But it's more than that. The Unspeakables study the foundations of existence itself: time, death, love, thought, space, and prophecy. No one outside the department knows their names or their methods. Their job isn't to publish discoveries, it's to contain them. Each chamber hides a concept too dangerous to explain. The Hall of Prophecy, the spinning room of time turners, the locked door pulsing with pure love, and a place where thought becomes sound. The shocking twist: during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, those secrets literally broke loose, shattering the boundaries between what's known and what should never be known. For centuries, the Unspeakables have answered only to themselves. They don't fight wars or enforce laws. They study what makes magic exist, and in doing so, they guard knowledge powerful enough to unmake it. Dumbledore's Army. Dumbledore's Army is the backbone of Hogwarts resistance. On the surface, it looked like a student club, a handful of teenagers practicing spells in secret. But it was more than that. Born in the Room of Requirement during Dolores Umbridge's reign, the DA became the school's answer to tyranny. While the Ministry banned practical defense against the dark arts, Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley created a place where real defense could be taught, disarming, shielding, surviving. They didn't wait for professors or Aurors, they became them. Hermione even enchanted the membership list with curses strong enough to brand any traitor. At first it was just lessons, but when the Ministry fell and the Carrows turned Hogwarts into a prison, the DA evolved from a club into a rebellion. Neville Longbottom, Luna Lovegood, and Ginny Weasley led from the shadows, turning the room into a sanctuary for the hunted. The shocking twist: when adults failed, children led the resistance. And when the Battle of Hogwarts began, it wasn't Dumbledore's army that followed the Order, it was the Order that followed them. The Order of Merlin. The Order of Merlin was once the highest honor a witch or wizard could receive, a mark of virtue and wisdom that traced its name back to the greatest sorcerer in history. Founded by Merlin himself, the Order began not as an award, but as a movement. Its members followed a code that demanded responsibility, that magic should protect life, not dominate it, and that peace between magical and non-magical people was worth fighting for, a radical belief for its time. For centuries, the Order stood as a moral compass, guiding laws, influencing councils, and shaping wizarding ethics. But slowly its meaning changed. What began as an oath became a medal. What once demanded sacrifice became ceremonial. By the modern age, the Wizengamot turned the Order into political theater. First class for heroism, second for service, third for contribution. Titles more about image than integrity. Cornelius Fudge even awarded himself one, proof that symbolism had replaced substance. The Order of Merlin remains in name only, a reminder that even ideals born in light can be dimmed by ego, and that the noblest codes die not in battle, but in bureaucracy. The Slug Club. Not every secret society hides in the dark. Some hide behind charm, laughter, and a perfectly poured glass of mead. Horace Slughorn's Slug Club was Hogwarts' most exclusive circle, a private network of students handpicked not for bravery or grades, but for promise. On the surface, it looked harmless. Dinners, desserts, and a genial old professor nurturing talent. But beneath the sugar lay strategy. Slughorn called it mentorship, but it was really influence, a web of connections that stretched far beyond the castle walls. His students grew into ministers, aurors, and influential witches across Britain, each unknowingly part of a network built on favors and flattery. Even Tom Riddle once sat at Slughorn's table, proof that genius and darkness can share the same toast. The twist isn't corruption, it's comfort. The Slug Club didn't need power to control the future, it simply invited it to dinner. In a world obsessed with bloodlines, Slughorn proved that influence could be cultivated quietly, one dessert plate at a time. The Snatchers Network. When Voldemort's regime took over the Ministry, law and order didn't vanish, they mutated. In their place came bounty hunters known as the Snatchers, scavengers dressed as soldiers, turning fear into profit. On the surface, they claimed to be enforcing the new laws against undesirable Muggleborns. In reality, they were predators, led by Fenrir Greyback and Scabior. The Snatchers roamed Britain without oversight, hunting refugees for gold and recognition. Their methods were as chaotic as their motives. They raided homes, ambushed travelers, and sold their captives to the Ministry like currency. Even Harry, Ron, and Hermione were caught by one of these gangs, proof that nowhere, not even the countryside, was safe. The shocking truth is that they weren't an organization at all. They were what happens when tyranny removes accountability. When laws become weapons, men become monsters. After Voldemort's fall, most Snatchers disappeared back into the shadows, but their legacy remained, a reminder that in every dictatorship, the worst evil isn't born from ideology, it's born from opportunity. The Society for the Support of Squibs. In a world that worships magic, being born without it was almost a curse. For centuries, squibs, children of magical families without any magical ability, lived in quiet shame, hidden by their own bloodlines. The Society for the Support of Squibs appeared briefly in Ministry records, described as a small charitable effort to help them adapt to Muggle life. On parchment, it sounded noble, offering education, housing, and employment for those the wizarding world refused to claim. But compassion is fragile when pride is stronger. Many pureblood families rejected the society entirely, calling it an embarrassment. To them, a squib wasn't someone to help, it was someone to forget. Yet people like Arabella Figg defied that silence. Watching over Harry Potter as part of the Order of the Phoenix, she proved that magic isn't the only kind of power. Empathy is. Eventually, the society faded into obscurity, likely absorbed by the Ministry's Muggle liaison office. But its disappearance says more than its existence ever did. In a world built on bloodlines, the Society for the Support of Squibs became proof that even good intentions can vanish when compassion threatens pride. The Goblin Rebellions. The Goblin Rebellions are among the oldest and bloodiest conflicts in wizarding history. Long before Voldemort or Death Eaters, goblins waged wars not for conquest but for recognition, a demand to be treated as equals in a world that profited from their genius and denied their rights. Their story began centuries ago when goblins were forced to work under wizard control, forbidden to carry wands, and stripped of ownership over the treasures they forged. Their demands were simple: wand rights, fair pay, and respect for their craftsmanship. But every plea was met with betrayal. The first great rebellion erupted in 1612 with battles fought in Hogsmeade and the Welsh valleys. Each uprising was crushed by the Ministry, who rewrote history to cast goblins as savage insurgents instead of oppressed artisans. But rebellion never truly died, it evolved. Some wizards, like Albus Dumbledore, sought alliance over dominance, recognizing the quiet intelligence behind centuries of resistance. The irony is that the rebellion's legacy didn't fade with peace, it buried itself in commerce. By the modern era, goblins like Griphook proved that power could be reclaimed, not with swords, but with knowledge. Their fight was never for gold, it was for ownership of their work, their history, and their worth. But this was only the beginning. If you're a member of one of these secret organizations, your next assignment has already appeared. Right there on the screen. Dumbledore's waiting. Click now before he falls asleep.